discontinue the annual event. Now, it takes place in the middle of the night before the West Indian Day Parade in Brooklyn. Mayor de Blasio, for his part, does not want to shut it down, but he is talking about making some changes. Like Mayor de Blasio, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams says the festival ought to continue, but he does say major security changes are in fact necessary. Dom, he sat down with Adams this week.
Like the mayor, Mr. Borough President, you feel that Juve should continue. But what about the violence? The violence, Mr. Borough President.
We should never give up on any event in the city saying that we can't manage that. If we do that message, then the bad guys win. The bad guys now have us living through the sign that says no radio in the car. Please stop breaking my window. I have to just have you deal drugs in my lobby. That is what happened in the past. So this is not so much about Juve and the violence. It is about violence and events. Because the same weekend of Juve, which took place Monday morning, that same weekend, we had 5 shootings in Queens on Sunday. We had 4 shootings in Harlem, 3 shootings in the Bronx, with 1 in Staten Island. So when you look at the common denominator, it's the illegal gun, not the event. Even if we get rid of Juve, as people think, you're still going to have the violence. So if you don't deal with the violence, you are basically giving people the false sense that all is well if we just get rid of the Juve event. That is the wrong thing to do. And then it says that the finest police department on the planet has an event that they can't manage. We can't go back to those days believing that the criminal wins. We don't surrender to crime. Crime surrenders to us.
Mr. Borough President, the mother of the slain young man said that she worried about her son and she did not want him to attend Juve because of the possibility of violence. The young lady, we have lost one of the best and brightest of our community, a St. John's graduate student who aspired to be an accountant. And then last year, we had a top aide to Governor Cuomo killed during Juve.
And the greatest disservice I can do is to say, you know what, I'm just going to respond to your pain and cancel Juve. And then on that night, we still get 4 or 5 killings because now it's under control. Then I gave you the false sense of security. Policing needs to be a real sense of security, not a false sense of security. People who shoot guns are not shooting it because there's an event. They shoot it because they have them, they're illegal, and they're criminal. They're going to shoot if it's Juve or if it's in a junior high school yard. That is the problem, and it would be a disservice to say we're canceling Juve, and then you come around to the next Labor Day weekend, West Indian Day celebration, and you have a number of shootings during that same time, the same hour. We can't close those bars, restaurants, and clubs. We can't go door to door and tell people you're not going to have a cookout anymore. It still will exist. So we did a disservice by not placing the revenue, the resources, and the think and mind power of saying all events in this city must be safe. No exceptions. Public safety doesn't stop when the sun goes down. A woman should be able to jog in the park as late as she wants. Some people would say, well, won't you advise her not to? Yes, I would, but I won't close the park if she decides to do so. That's what we do in America. You have the right to make those decisions. And I think the question that was asked about the parent was so important. My 20-year-old son won't go to Juve. You're not going, son. My 19-year-old daughter won't go to Juve. You're not going, son. But I also tell them to don't go to certain concerts that I think are dangerous. I tell them don't go to certain block parties that I think are dangerous. I decide until they come to the point that they can handle themselves, I make the determination of where they're going and where they're not going. But those parents that feel it's okay, I don't want to say, just as I won't say to that woman that's jogging in the park, you can't go. You make the decision on what you're going to do. Those 250,000 Brooklynites made the determination that they wanted to go out and celebrate Juve. That is their personal decision. That's what we do in America. People make their personal decision. My personal decision is, son, you wait till the sun comes up and you go to the West Indian Day Parade.
So in wrapping up, Mr. Borough President, how do we make sure that the violence does not happen again next year?
A couple of things. One, you stop the violence by starting your stopping of the violence early. That community is saturated with gangs. Those gangs are shooting each other and shooting innocent people. So it has to start day one of taking down those gangs. Day two, look at adjustment of hours. I'm open to adjusting hours. Should it be done during the day? Should it be done at 6 o'clock? Look at a space, a fixed space. That's one part of Juve. Should it be done in Prospect Park? Should it be done in Lincoln Terrace Park where we start off the parade? Should we open that entire space and allow people to walk around that entire space where the police officers can have ensured the search that we do at Times Square, certain people come in, certain people that come out. So let's be open to all of those conversations on what we should do. Video surveillance, cameras, to make sure that if someone does something inappropriate, that you can zoom in right away and identify where a problem is stemming from. Open alcohol, open consumption of alcohol. West Indian Day Parade became safer. We stopped selling alcohol on the parkway, stopped allowing it to be consumed. We saw the numbers of crime drop down. Booze and bad people is a bad mix. This person who shot this young girl from St. John's, he was intoxicated, still intoxicated the next day. So there are ways to make it safer, and I think that we need to move to do it. You don't make the community safer by going from event to event and say, I can't police and I'm going to cancel it. That's not what the best police department does.
And for more, let's bring in Dominic Carter. Dominic, for people who didn't recognize the name before, Eric Adams, cop obviously, he came to some prominence with 100 Blacks in law enforcement. Now, obviously, where he is in Brooklyn right now. Is this a guy who wants to be mayor?
No doubt about it, Richard. Excellent question when you look at Eric Adams and his track record in public life in terms of out of office and now in office. Eric Adams, as you said, a police officer, literally a police officer out on the beat for some 20 years within the NYPD. At times he had a rocky relationship with city administrations as the lead person in 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. That's the name of the group. Eric Adams, it normally goes along this pecking order. Scott Stringer, the city controller, as the leading contender to challenge de Blasio in a primary. And then the second name that always comes up as someone who has a wide, diverse base is Eric Adams. So he wants to be mayor. He doesn't hide that. It's just a matter of timing right now.
Speaking of timing, you've seen the headlines of the daily tabs. You've seen the editorial pages of the Times and other places. People like enough is enough here. We've tried here with Juve. My God, how many more people got to die for finally to pull the plug on this thing? De Blasio, he's said what he said here, and Adams basically saying the same thing. Aren't these guys inviting trouble next year if one more person gets killed or something else? They're putting their necks on the line here that they can police this thing. They doubled the cops this year. It didn't change anything.
You're preaching to the choir right now. Not only doubling the police officers, let's keep in mind the signs that the community council for the police department put up in the area. Please do not shoot anyone. Literally signs that were put up throughout the community. Please do not stab anyone. You're preaching to the choir. I'm with you. I went into the Adams interview under the belief of shut it down. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. However, Eric Adams, in this interview we just watched, he did make a very compelling case that if you give in and shut it down, aren't you surrendering your city to the thugs? And that's something that none of us ever want to agree to.
We don't, but at some point, just because you shut down a parade, you are making a point here that no matter what, I don't care how many cops you have, obviously you're asking for trouble the way this thing is structured, but still, very interesting conversation, Dom. All right, when we come back, we will pivot. A few words from me on how Congress is handling Zika funding, and for many, including yours truly, it's enough to make you sick.